Congoers and cosplayers, what are your cringiest and creepiest con experiences? Last year, my then fiancée cosplayed as Kamala Khan. This one really creepy guy approached us and started up a conversation with her about how great her costume was. Then he spent about 10 minutes talking her ear off about all the people that he wanted Kamala Khan to have as ex within the comics. Dude, we don't care if you think that seeing her with Gwenpool or Wolverine would be hot. It's pretty creepy. He asked her who she wanted to see have as ex with Kamala, which got the response no one. She's 16, meaning the character, not the fiancé. That didn't really stop him though. We ended up having to walk away from him mid-sentence because he wasn't getting the hint. Edit, the ending and some clarification. Oh god, I will never forget this one. Happened at a particularly large anime convention. Listen to two 20-somethings very awkwardly have this conversation on a shuttle bus from the convention center back to our hotel at night. A is a skinny guy wearing these bizarre light-up shutter shades. B is a moderately attractive girl with light-up rings on her fingers and an unrecognizable cosplay. A, oh my god, I am so freaking lit right now. B, I've been lit since at least 10:30 this morning. A, wow, you go hard. Where do you find beer that early? B, looks at A incredulously. Seriously? Just go to a liquor store. A, laughs awkwardly. Haha, yeah. Silence for a few minutes. A, so have you gotten lit every day of the con so far? B, oh yeah. Pretty much every con I go to. Me and my crew just get totally lit. Another weird silence. A, you should come back to my room. There's gonna be a huge party later. B, sounds cool. I'll tell my friends. Should I bring anything? A, could you bring some of that fun juice? B, looking confused, but laughing awkwardly. Lol, what? A, could you bring some of those beers? End scene. Just stuck in Cringe City. Also, this conversation was super loud on a coach bus packed full of people. Years ago, my wife and I were at a smaller comic convention in Toronto. We were walking around the vendor section and came to a custom chainmail shop staffed by a single girl, probably 17-18, outfitted in leather shorts and a chainmail bra. I assume whoever else was working the booth with her left for a bit. Anyways, it was just a single table and the backdrop behind her. A significantly older, very off-putting man was standing at her table, making bad smart talk while taking multiple photos of the clearly weirded out girl. She looked over at us and was practically screaming for help with her eyes. My wife pushed over to the table and started talking and asking her product related questions, and the dude wandered off after a couple of minutes. At the same con, I left my wife alone for a bit, and she ended up cornered in a booth trying to be as polite as possible while a random guy explained to her his theories of how the Joker is personification of pure chaos, and how he would just stab someone in the neck because he could. My tip for any guys looking to make small talk with random girls at a convention: don't lead with how your favorite comic character is awesome because he can murder anyone he wants at any time. I've only been to one convention, but here goes. Cringiest moment was during the cosplay competition. There was a couple that was dressed as Toph and Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender. The, frankly annoying, host announced to the audience that Zuko has an important question to ask his girlfriend. Apparently it's a thing to propose during the competition. So they do their little show. Toph throws a foam rock at Zuko, and then they just stand there awkwardly. The guy gets cold feet or whatever, because like 2 minutes pass where it's not clear what's going to happen. They walk off stage. Then the girl comes back and stands there for a few seconds, then goes away again. Zuko comes back and stands there. The host doesn't know what to say. She kinda ignores him and talks about how mean it is to throw rocks at your boyfriend. Zuko gets the hint and walks off. Then the host goes, oh, looks like he changed his mind. Maybe we'll get a proposal next year. Other highlights include a cosplayer making a very serious 15-minute speech about how cosplaying changed his life and everybody should follow their dreams. Some spelling and some details. Creepiest by far was one of my first conventions. I was about 15 years. I cosplayed as Conan from Naruto, and boy, it was a good ducking job. I was posing for a photo with some people when this guy came up to me and explained how neat he thought the costume was and how well I pulled it off. Thanks. He wanted a picture too. Sure, he wanted a link to my DeviantArt. It's broken. Then when I let him know I need to go this way to not so subtly escape, he followed. Oh, I'm going this way too. It took me 10 minutes to work out how to separate myself from this creep and realize we had walked to the food court, where the toilets are. I politely excused myself only to receive what would have to be the most disgusting response. Oh, that's cool. I'll come with. I'm 15. You're a guy. This is a women's bathroom. No. This for me was some time ago and I understood soon after that I handled the situation poorly. Whether he meant to or not, he gave me the creeps, so that's why I shared. Plus spelling grammar. Image for clarification. This happened just last year actually. Me and my girlfriend were cosplaying Blitz and IQ from Rainbow Six Siege at a relatively small con. Things were fantastic at the start. Lots of "oh hey guys, can I get a picture?" Just felt pretty good to get some recognition. We had worked really hard on the costumes and even made Blitz's flash shield with working lights. A few hours in and some guy in a costume I didn't recognize shouts, "Blitz, I need to fight you." Sure dude, we'll pose for some fight pictures. No big deal. Well, he didn't really grasp the concept of posing and started actually punching my shield, which was made of some relatively thin pegboard material and the view slot was just plastic. I told him to tone it down and just put his fist against it so it looked like he was hitting it in the picture. His response? "It's a shield, dude. It'll be fine." And punches the plastic right out of the shield. I'm pissed. My girlfriend is pissed. The dude is ecstatic. He throws up his fists and battle cries before running off. Duck you, dude. I went to my first ever convention at the age of 13. I didn't dress up or anything. I just wanted to take pictures of good cosplayers. My friend and I spotted a very handsome and flawless Moroku cosplayer. Inuyasha was my favorite anime at the time. I was ecstatic and my friend pushed me in his direction to take a picture with him. I scooted close to him and, staying true to character, he groped my ass. It was the best goddamn day of my life. Years later, I realized how creepy it is to be 13, groped by a 20-year-old, and have it be the highlight of my middle school days. Edit. Middle school, not middle class LMAO. Volunteered for large cons for 15 years. Was on break talking to a friend cosplaying as Sailor Mars. She's an attractive girl and was sitting with myself and a con chair for a different con when a young male shuffled up. He opened by complimenting her costume. He then followed up with, "I've fantasized about you since I was 13. I facepalmed and there was a pause and he just sort of shuffled away." Sailor Mars continued on our original conversation. I can only imagine the horrors she has had to put up with. At PAX Prime this past summer, my daughter and I were dressed as Link and Zelda. A man dressed as Ganon approached my daughter, who in her Zelda outfit looked to be about 17-18, but she was only 14, and told her so. "Why don't you and I head to my castle while my buddies take care of the old lady?" Sadly, my sword wasn't quite sharp enough to bisect him. Teenage Homestuck cosplayers laying in the middle of the walkways outright dry humping and making out. When they were asked to move, they made a huge fit about it, accusing the staff of being homophobic. Some Deadpool cosplayer was running around doing silly poses and trying to be witty and charming until he tripped in front of a large crowd and landed pretty hard on his knee. It was obvious he was hurt, so someone went to help him and he screams "duck off" as you can see tears soaking through his mask. Full grown man, jumping around in the cringiest attempt at being Deadpool, smashes his knee, lashes out and cries. One time I was cosplaying as Felicia from Darkstalkers, a character who is a cat girl. This girl at a con just ran up out of nowhere screaming "Glomp the Nico" as she launched herself at me and practically tackled me. Then she stood there hugging me without permission as I tried to extricate myself, and she stank really, really badly. Also, same con and costume. Some obese guy who was watching a door to check for badges told me I couldn't come in until I hugged him. Was dragged to a Ponicon by a friend who promised it would be fun. I don't even like My Little Pony, but I went anyway. We stayed at the hotel that the con was being hosted at, and the first day that we arrive we are waiting in the lobby when suddenly a random guy throws a pony toy in through the lobby doors. He then proceeds to run inside after it and squat into some ninja pose to retrieve it. He is wearing a Free Hugs shirt. His friend follows him in equally as nerdy. They spot us across the lobby and realize we are there for the con. Friend was in cosplay. They walk over. No ducking joke. Pretending to be robots and say hey ladies and point to their free hugs shirt. I look at my friend like, no ducking way am I hugging these greasy boys. And she just laughs and hugs them. I stand firmly with my arms crossed. She gives me the come on don't be an ass look so I give in and hug them. They both hug me soul crushingly tight then leave. They had that lingering itty pants smell on top of rodent killing BO. As they were walking away I heard one of them say dude her titties felt so soft against my chest. It's safe to say the rest of the con was hell. 2. Most cons happen in very urban areas. I always cringe when I am making the long walk from parking lot to convention center in costume because the random suited people on the street are usually just minding their own business when they see me. Adult dressed as a ducking Jedi. Going about my own way. It's definitely embarrassing having people see you dressed up with no context. But it's all okay once you make it into the building and everyone already knows what to expect. The cringiest thing I have seen another person do was go on stage for a costume contest and make a joke that nobody got in the entire audience of hundreds of people. There was dead silence for a solid 15 seconds or so, then the room filled with hesitant sympathy chuckles. Creepiest con experience was when some guy tried to grab my little stepbrother's hand and walk off with him. I went once and saw a guy dressed as Tennant's doctor, and these teenage girls walked by in Sailor Moon outfits and he looked at them and said oh yeah, I'd like to be bigger on their insides. It was the worst. It clarified the girls were pretty young looking. I sell comics at conventions and have seen a lot of really cringy stuff. The ones that make me cringe the most are the furries. There's always a group of them, and while they stick to their own little group, they constantly feel the need to grope each other in the main hall. There's also those groups, usually girls who constantly run around, like sprinting, and when they see someone they know, they jump on them, glomping or whatever the duck you call it. All I know is that whatever it is, it annoys me. I always feel bad for the cosplaying ladies. I've become good friends with many of them since we all go to the same cons all the time, and my mom who helps with the business loves to go talk to them at panels about sewing and stuff. They get creeped on so much, especially the ones with very large breasts. Like one girl who has done some nude modeling and does cosplaying for a living now. People can't just take pictures. They always try to grope her. Just cause you post a nude picture online doesn't mean you're giving permission for people to just feel you up whenever they want. I've seen some funny stuff too though. I saw two people dressed as the Fed walk up to each other. One took off their helmet and was a rather attractive girl. The other took off their helmet and had a horse head on under it. The girl grabbed the horse head and pulled that off, and it was Deadpool. I laughed pretty hard. The cringiest thing and creepiest things I've ever seen as a con actually both happened at a local convention held at a university. The cringiest one was a guy participating in a cosplay contest as his original steampunk character, which would have probably been fine on its own if he didn't answer all of the judges' questions on stage awkwardly in character. The creepiest thing I saw requires some context. When we were at this same contest, the winner was a guy who was clearly in his 30s or 40s doing his own OC, which was a samurai with a mask covering his face. He talked to my girlfriend and complimented her on her outfit, and he seemed really nice every time we talked to him. But a day after the convention we found out that they revoked his award because they found he was sexually harassing young girls earlier that night and registered for the convention under a fake name. It was a local convention, so most of the people there knew each other, but no one had any idea who this guy was. I was standing in the artist's alley talking to some people at a table about the character I was dressed as, when some crazy person literally jumped on me from behind shrieking something about pretty cosplay. Then he grabbed my ass and ran away making bizarre noises. It was rather unsettling and pissed me off considerably. I used to sell art in the artist alley at local cons, and I never got to walk around too much since I had to watch over my table. But the people who come up to you can be plenty creepy and cringy. I had one lady come up to me while I was drawing and go on a rant about how this con would never be as good as Dragon Con. Which honestly, who cares? She was also flinging spittle all over my drawing with apparently zero awareness. Also, women artists at the tables near me, always having to fend off creepy lurky dudes who just won't go away. It's sad. I've been pretty lucky, especially as a chick cosplaying Poison Ivy, which is admittedly a pretty sexy costume, corset, heels, etc. No super hardcore harassment. The worst thing I've experienced are people, men, getting really close or trying to put their hands on inappropriate areas during requested photos. Like, I'm okay with a photo but no, you can't put your hands on my ass. I've also had people ask me to leave my boyfriend and come with them, even if only for a night. Cringe dude. Definitely no. Uber driver here. I was driving in Atlanta during DragonCon and I picked up a dude dressed up as a refrigerator. The creepiest thing I ever saw was a sexy gender-bend Batman. Mind you, not a Batgirl or Batwoman, which wasn't the problem. That was asked to pose for a picture with his family's child. Kid was maybe 6 or 7. And the pose the parents wanted? The kid on the ground with Batman's foot on him like he was pinned down. Ended up looking like pedo BDSM. Not just an attendee but a worker too. I do security for some comic cons here in the UK, usually the front of house. While you'll talk to a few people, I'll talk to a few thousand. For me, the cringiest attendees are ones that take the character they're cosplaying as way too seriously, going up to security officers and trying to roleplay with them. Bear in mind a lot of the team is 40-something men that hate this stuff and are only here for the paycheck. They fully expect us to understand all the fandoms and get confused or even annoyed that I don't know niche character from weird anime. But the worst was when I had to do queue control for a popular YouTube stand, Rooster Teeth. I'm not sure how popular they are. I don't know who they are. Kids being upset and angry they can't meet their idols is fine. I get that. This one kid had a full mental breakdown in front of me. I say kid. He was more like 15-16. Stomping up and down in tears, yelling about how unfair it was he couldn't go in. He most likely had some conditions but it was a sight to behold, and one that put me off working at comic cons for a while. Creepiest was the old guy we handed to the police for taking candid photographs of teenage cosplayers. Girls, cosplay all you want but please know there are perverts out there and they will take upskirt photos of you when you're in your skimpy schoolgirl costume. Guys too. But it's almost always creeps going after female minors. Stay safe. We recommend you wear plain black shorts under those skirts. We also confiscated a wooden plank with 6-inch long rusty nails hammered because the guy in plain clothes said it was a part of his costume. I don't think so. For me it was last year at the Sydney Smash Anime Convention. I saw the Dark Magician girl figure where you can see the panty shot at a stall and this dude was just hovering it for ages and looking at it in different angles. Then started speaking to me about the underwear she was wearing. Then went off about hentai. Wasn't trolling, this was a genuine conversation starter for this guy. Many years ago, I went to a con dressed in a Babylon 5 Corps uniform. I got cornered in an autograph line by the stereotypical creepy nasal voiced Trekkie who went on and on about all the reasons why DS9 was totally way better than B5 blah 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 etc. No amount of that's your opinion and I respect that. I happen to prefer B5 feet would shut him up. Dude was mortally offended that I liked one show better than another. Thank heaven my friends showed up shortly thereafter and saved me from having to listen to the guy any further. Holy it, just thinking about this experience makes my arsehole shrivel, but sharing cringy moments is my passion, so let's go. So I was cosplaying Gremlin DVA at Sydney Smash when this photography dude, who's taken photos of me earlier on the day, approaches me with a MNT Dukin and cracks a joke about DVA and the good old classic gamer drink, and tells me about this challenge he made up for himself to take a sip for every DVA cosplayer he sees. He insists that because I'm Gremlin DVA, logically he should chug an entire can upon sighting me. I'm like 8, but then he drops it on me that he wants me to watch him do it. Whilst he films it, my innards collapse upon themselves with the force of the cringe but being the nice, giving person I ducking agree to the act like a chump. He gives the camera to my sister, who's cosplaying Mai, and proceeds to awkwardly hawk down the goddamn due inaudible gulps. But the thing is it takes some time to chug a 250ml can of soda for a scrawny nerd. So cue about 15 seconds worth of me attempting to act impressed with some incredibly cringy, oh grave a circumflex a diaresis faces and gestures whilst inside I'm like, or yensi sadilla. The cherry on top is when he finally ducking finishes. I blurt out, now that's what I call a new high score, in that squeaky DVA voice, and I do this dumb Nerf gun pose towards the camera woman. My own ducking sister. I wanted to die. I still think about that moment late at night and experience visceral, physical pain. It haunts me. I sell some original comics and usually have a table. But the story that sticks out to me is that at a con there was a kid who was about 14 and pretty nerdy. He went on and on to us about a vendor having ice cream planets. I guess they were in Firefly. These were balls of ice cream on the end of a string that you had to eat while holding it up in the air. He made a point every time he had one to walk past our table making eye contact with us as he tried to eat this ice cream that was on a string. I was dressed up as the blue-haired girl from Me, and some guy asked me why I wasn't dressed as the naked version of her. Cute. I was dressed in a reboot Star Trek Uhura costume. A man in a uniform from the original movies comes up and asks to take a picture with me. I say yes. He takes a normal picture and then, before I could do anything, he grabs my leg and throws it over himself. This uniform was short enough that my ass underwear was definitely visible in that pic. He thanked me and sped off while my d-hole ex laughed about the whole thing. It was so fast I didn't even react until he'd left. It was a drive-by grope. Cringiest. My husband cosplayed as Darth Vader around the time EPVI came out. He was very popular because he's 6 feet 4 inches and built like a linebacker. Lots of requests for pictures. This guy who looked like he lived in his mother's basement came up dressed as a Jedi. And by Jedi I mean he was wearing a bathrobe and carrying an expensive looking lightsaber prop. He wanted to be recorded fighting Darth Vader. So he hands me his camera, didn't even ask, takes his stance, and proceeds to have an aggressive lightsaber duel with my husband, where most people took about 15 seconds to get their poses photographed. This guy dueled for about 2 minutes. My stomach was in knots the whole time from the awkwardness. Darth husband eventually had to force choke him to end it. A massive and amazingly plotted out Sailor Moon panel was completely derailed by these two kids. They were about 10 and 12. A little young considering it was way late in the night. But it wasn't an adult panel so they got in. Constant barrage of questions. Anytime they started talking it lead to a 5-minute rant on how their classmates at school don't understand what being an otaku is like. The panelist was clearly flustered but wasn't sure what to do about this so she answered them and let them go on. She got to cover maybe 20% of her panel. About half of the room of 70-ish people left because it was just too much. I once had a con goer kinda grab me whilst I was in a set of cosplay armor. I mean, I'm not a skittish person, but she didn't let go and got a bit gropey. I had to tell her to let go, which she didn't do at first, and I must confess I got pretty angry with her as I could hear one of my armor pieces buckling. I ended up taking her to one side and saying to her it's unacceptable just to walk up to someone and grab them without asking. I asked if she would find it okay if a random guy came up and grabbed her, and she answered, yeah, but that's not the same, is it? I can't exactly describe it, but her tone very much added because I'm really pretty so people don't usually mind. I told her that I didn't think it made any difference. You can't just grope people because you feel like it. Almost immediately she flew into a bit of a tantrum. Not wanting to listen to her response I just had to tell her not to speak to me for the rest of the event. It's weird. Because, even in this thread, you always hear these stories. And they're often about guys who creep on women. As a guy I never believed that this would happen in reverse. But I guess that's just because it goes against the stereotype. It actually really bothered me. Much more than I would ever have thought. And I sympathize with people who have to deal with this a lot. I'm fortunate in that having attended many events, this has only happened twice. And the other incident was more of an innocent misunderstanding. So to sum up, cosplay isn't consent. And groping isn't okay irrespective of gender. One of the cringiest things I've seen happen during a small con when a bunch of friends and I were hanging out in an area with some couches, just chatting and reading bad fan fiction together as you do. We'd been sitting there for a while when a guy and two girls walked up and stopped a few meters in front of us. One of the girls was dressed in a bra harness that went around her torso and hips and in between her legs. The world's shortest leather skirt, a gag, stripper heels, Some kind of animal paws and a collar with a leash. No underwear. Nothing else. The guy talked with the other girl for a while before he grabbed the first girl's leash and dragged her off to somewhere. Creepiest was probably the time a legit neck butt hit on me, or something. IDK what he actually wanted. When I was 13. It was raining and my cosplay, a very covering maid uniform, was half drenched. I was standing in line at McDonald's when the guy in front of me turned around and in baby speech asked if the little kitty is wet. Which wouldn't have been all that creepy if he hadn't easily been 40 centimeters taller than me and 20 plus years old with the looks of a senior hobo. A lot of cons now promote inclusiveness. That is, you should cosplay as who you want. etc. My husband and I were walking around, and he saw a girl wearing a great costume. She was with a group of people. He said, "Oh, that's really great." For whatever reason, the group openly mocked him. Like, full on mocking, mimicking his words, everything. I'd get it if they were teens, but everyone there was at least 25 plus, and my husband and I are in our 30s. Seriously, what?